Well, you guys, we're going to finish our story about Black Beauty from the excerpt My Breaking In. Now, before we begin, let's just refresh on what's happened so far. So we read about 6 paragraphs yesterday. So remember, these are our summary notes. The master decides to break Black Beauty in. This means that Black Beauty will learn to carry people or pull a cart. Then we have our next part. Remember, we went through all this, and then we had this summary right here for these next paragraphs. Black Beauty must first get used to Bit and Brittle, which he hates. Though this experience is difficult, he eventually adjusts to it thanks to his master's kindness and to his thoughts of how his mother always also wore a bit and brittle. He eventually is able to carry the master around without any problem and feels proud about it. Now, we have these questions to make sure you listened to it yesterday. Black Beauty's life may never be the same after he turns 4 years old. You're going to say these are all true or false. So, notice it also has those words we had, those modal auxiliaries, that may, that must, that, where else do we have? Can, and should. We have those words that are saying the kind of force that should be allowed. So, I'll read them all, then you'll answer those questions, and then we'll continue. Black Beauty's life may never be the same after he turns 4 years old. He has to do what his master wants. He must go as fast or slow as his master wants. Black Beauty's mother doesn't have to wear the saddle and bridle that Beauty now has to wear. Black Beauty can stop and start when he wants, and Black Beauty's master said that at the age of 2, Beauty should work like a grown horse. All right, guys, hopefully you did well on those. Let's head to our new section. So let me zoom out so we can get the whole thing on the page. There we go. Now, remember in the earlier lesson, we identified those important details and events, and we just summarized the first part of My Breaking In. So today we're going to read and summarize the rest of the story. So let me get my annotations ready. The next unpleasant business was putting on the iron shoes. That too was very hard at first. My master went with me to Smith's forge to see that I was not hurt or got any fright. The blacksmith took my feet in his hand, one after the other, and cut away some of the hoof. It did not pain me, so I stood still on 3 legs till he had done them all. Then I took a piece of iron the shape of my foot and clapped it on. Next he drove some nails through the shoe quite into the hoof, so that the shoe was firmly on. My feet felt very stiff and heavy, but in time I got used to it. So here, Black Beauty tells about another important part of his breaking in. We added that sound in the previous one, and what do we have here? We have him putting shoes on as another part of breaking in. Black Beauty goes to the Smith's forge, and his master goes with him to make sure that he isn't hurt or afraid. So I'm going to number this event right here. The master went with me to the Smith's forge to see that I was not hurt or frightened. And why did he go? They were putting on those iron shoes. So now let's head to paragraph number 9. And now having got so far, my master went on to break me my harness. There were more new things to wear. First, a stiff heavy collar just to my neck, and a bridle with great side pieces against my eyes called blinkers. And blinkers indeed they were, for I could not see on either side, but only straight in front of me. And there was a small saddle with the nasty stiff strap that went right under my tail. That was the crupper. So what do we have with this part? We have, he's got yet another thing to wear. What is it? It's this crupper, which is that nasty strip strap, which we see right here in the picture. And what else does he have? He gets blinders, and he gets a stiff, heavy collar. So that's going to be what I'm going to put in my summary. So he gets iron shoes. His master goes with him to the forge to make sure he's not hurt. And then we have some more stuff about this crupper and the blinder or the blinkers and that stiff, heavy collars. Let's add that in. So he gets iron shoes. Oh, and I'll make this bigger for us. He gets iron shoes. His master goes with him to the forest to make sure that he is not hurt or afraid. He then gets even more stuff to wear, period. He gets a stiff, heavy collar around the neck and blinkers, along with a nasty, stiff strap called a crupper, period. So we see all this extra stuff that he gets that he normally wouldn't have if he was a wild horse. So now let's head to number 10. I hated the crupper. To have my long tail doubled up and poke through that strap was almost as bad as the bit. I never felt more like kicking, but of course I could not kick such a good master. And so in time I got used to everything, and could do my work as well as my mother. So he's saying he doesn't like it, but he does like his master in this first-person point of view, so he's going to tolerate it. Now let's head to the last pages. I must not forget to mention one part of my training, which I have always considered a great advantage. My master sent me for a fortnight to a neighboring farmer's, who had a meadow which was skirted on one side by the railway. I shall never forget the first train that ran by. So here's a horse and that first person telling us about a train. I was feeding quietly near the pales which separated the meadow from the railway, when I heard a strange sound at a distance. Before I knew whence it came, with a rush and a clatter, and a puffing out of smoke, a long black train of something flew by. It was gone almost before I could draw my breath. I turned and galloped to the farther side of the meadow as fast as I could. There I stood, staring with astonishment and fear. So, I think this is kind of an important part. He kind of like races this train. He gallops to the further side of the meadow. And why does he do that? Well, it sounds like he's staring at this train, this thing he doesn't know what it is at first. He's amazed, and he's also fearful of this long black train. So, we also see that is something different that sounds like he doesn't have at his own. Because remember it says it was this great advantage, this training. It's kind of funny that trading, he's training with the trade. So now let's head to number 12 and 13. For the first few days I could not feed in peace, but as I found that this terrible creature never came into the field, or did me any harm, I began to disregard it. Very soon I cared as little about the passing of the train as the cows and sheep did. So he actually doesn't care about this train. He said he cared very little about it. And he just ignored it like it sounds like those cows and sheep do. Since then I've seen many horses much alarmed and restive at the sight or sound of a steam engine. Thanks to my good master's care, I am as fearless at railway stations as I am in my own stable. So, I guess he wasn't training to race it, but he was training to realize, hey, this isn't a thing to be frightened of, but it sounds like a lot of other horses are. And so it might be good for him since he is now a horse that's in charge of carrying the master, carrying stuff. We don't want him to get frightened by a train, especially if he's delivering something nearby where a train might be. So he's saying, hey, I'm good with this. I know what I'm doing. So now, what can we do with this portion? Well, we're going to do our summary with it. And so part of the summary I have is that Black Beauty is broken to harness and learns to live near train tracks without being afraid. So all of that part was pulling together, was helping us realize that he's not afraid of those trains. We could add more to it, but it seems like that was the purpose of it, so we're just going to leave it at that. So now let's make it a little bigger. And not only this, but this is our key part because it kind of tells us why Black Beauty, the horse, has been telling us all of these stories about the crupper, about the bit, even about the trains. It's because these are all difficult experiences. But once he has finished being broken in, he's proud of himself. Remember, it says he's fearless with this railway station. Up top, it tells us that he gets used to it. It says he has a good master. There's another part in here that said he was even proud. I felt proud to carry my master. So all this is showing that even though he doesn't like it, he is excited that he now is able to show off what he's able to accomplish. All right, guys, you are now going to write a brief summary about what has happened for our 2 chapters in Black Beauty today. Well, for this next part of my break-in, we're going to focus on vocabulary. So these are our objectives. I will be able to use context clues to determine word meanings, use an online dictionary to check definitions of the words, and review those key ideas. So remember, there's some technical terms in here. So words about raising and breaking in horses that we probably don't know what they mean. So we have to understand these technical terms based on the context clues in the story. If we don't know them at all, and we just skip over them and don't even try to figure out what they mean based on the context, it's going to be really difficult since this story is all about a horse. So we use those context clues and word reference sources, also called that online dictionary, to find these technical and challenging terms. So the first one that I noticed is in paragraph 3. And we have this word. Let me get a yellow highlighter out. And it's chase. So where did that go? I just saw it before my highlighter. Right here. So what is this? I don't know. Well, actually I do know. It comes from a French word. But I know even if I didn't know French, because there's some other items in here that's going to help us figure out. I don't know what a chase is, but there's a context clue in sentence 5 where it says a cart or a chase. So this part right here is going to help me out. A cart or a chase. It's going to help me figure out what a chase is. That tells me a chase is like a cart that is fixed behind a horse to pull. And how do I know that? Well, this word or is saying, hey, these two words are connected. So they're related to each other. And then it's telling me with this part right here, it's fixed behind me. So now I know what a chase is. It's a cart that is behind the horse. And again, if I didn't know that, I use that, and then I can use a picture to see if any of these ever support that. And look, maybe this is a chase right here, because it was a cart fixed behind the master. Now, chase actually comes from a French word which literally means chair, so that's another reason how I knew. Now, after reading paragraph 3, I'm fairly sure that it's something a horse pulls like a cart. But there's many kinds of vehicles that a horse can pull, so I don't know exactly what that word means. So what I can also do is I can consult an online dictionary. So I'm going to pull this up over here. Actually, let me see. I don't remember if this will let us do it this way. So let me check. Smart lookup. Yeah, there we go. So we can double click it, do that smart lookup, and oh look, there's a picture of a chase right there for us. And it says a chase. Oh, now look, it's in French, so that didn't help us at all, did it? But yeah, there's modern day chases that you see we lay on. But this is the kind we're talking about. And then we could click define, and it says a horse-drawn carriage for 2 or more people. So, so it looks like we got that down. So what are we going to do now? Well, now we're going to use a chart to help us figure out some more of those words. So I'm going to head on over to paragraph 4, and there's another word in here that we're going to look at. And it's one you may know. We are not going to start out with a more difficult one right away, but it's this word harness. It said, but worst of all is, when the harness is once on, he may neither jump for joy nor lie down for weariness. Now, what do you think that word harness means? We're going to look in this sentence to figure it out. There's some context clues to help you figure out what it is. It's something that is put on a horse, and it doesn't allow a horse to jump for joy or lie down. So it doesn't let him jump for joy nor lie down for weariness. And it also says what? Once the harness is on. So it's something that we put on top of them. So it's something that's like holding him down. It's something that limits this horse's movement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this graphic organizer to fill out what's going on here. So we have the word harness, and it's in paragraph 4. And we have our context clues. How do we know what a harness might be based on some clues that the author has given us? So this is what we have. When a harness is once on, he may neither jump for joy nor lie down for weariness. And what we think it is that something that limits the horse's movement. It's something that restricts him, something that he doesn't enjoy because he can't jump, he can't move around very well. So what can we do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make it bigger so we can read it better. And then remember, we're going to look it up to see if our definition is correct, what we think it is. And what's nice is since we're on the computer, we double click, we click those dots here, we can do a smart lookup. And so what is a harness? It's a set of straps or fitting which is fastened to a cart. So sounds like it goes with that other thing he had. Notice here's a harness. We see a picture right here. We see a picture here. Oh, that's like the kind I put on my dog. So those are all harnesses. You also use harnesses if you're a rock climber to strap yourself to a rope so you don't unfortunately die if you fall off the cliff that you're climbing on. So our definition that we pulled, oops, let me pull it back for us. I didn't copy it down for us. This is our definition that that online source just had. A set of straps that's put on a horse to attach it to a cart. So we have that big fancy definition, but we can see that really it's a set of straps that we put on a horse. It does limit that horse's movement. So now I want you guys to see if you can figure out what this word might be. The word is blinkers. And it's not like you turn on a blinker on your car. So what is that? Well, notice I'm telling you right here, it's in paragraph 9. So let's head down to paragraph 9 and see what we get. Paragraph 9. So let's highlight, let's annotate it. There we go. We see the word twice. First, a stiff, heavy collar just on my neck and a bridle with great side pieces against my eyes were called blinkers. And blinkers indeed they were, for I could not see on either side, but only straight in front of me. So I'm going to put those context clues down, what we think that blinker is, and then you guys are going to tell me what do you think a definition might be for it. So, oops. There we go. What do you think blinkers are? Now, what I think blinkers are is they're pieces attached to a bridle or bridle that allow a horse to see straight in front. And now you remember what we're going to do next. We're going to check to see if our definition is correct. So let's check it up. We double click, click those 3 dots, and we do our smart lookup. It's a device that blinks, especially on a vehicle's turn signal. Not the kind of look on. Blinders on a horse. And here we see a picture of it. So yeah, it looks like we're on the right track. It's something that allows it to only see straight forward. It looks like they covered the side of its eyes so that we can't, get distracted as a horse. So what are they? We'll use this definition. They are blinders on a horse. We could also describe them if we want. We could say they're like small leather screens attached to the horse's bridle to prevent it from seeing sideways. So we have other definitions that we could put, obviously, but they all relate to the same thing. Now we're on our next part, which is your guys' writing. So remember yesterday, you guys should have written your introduction. It was 3 sentences long. You had a topic that should have focused on point of view. In our mentor text, it was on animals and picturing and visualizing. Then you should have had your opinion, which one you like better, first person or third person. And you should have had your 2 reasons for that last sentence, where you describe which one you liked better. Now, for today's, we're going to focus on including and incorporating text evidence to support our opinion and provide a concluding statement. So, we have the section of including reasons for our opinion. Remember, a good opinion essay doesn't just state an opinion, it provides reasons for that opinion. So, we're going to look at how do we incorporate those into our paragraphs. So how do we use facts and details from text to support our reasons, to support this blue highlighted part. Remember, mine is a little different than I'll be explaining because I'm not writing that essay for you. So we're going to be using this mentor text of which animal is easier to picture in your mind, the dog in Here Boy or Misty and Waiting for Stormy. But you guys, remember, you're focusing on this point of view. So we're just modeling, we're showing you how to do it with a different writing prompt. So let's look at my opinion statement again. When reading a story, we should always try to picture the characters in our minds. The dog in Here Boy is easier to picture than the horse Misty in Waiting for Stormy. This is because the dog's appearance and actions are more clearly described. So let's look at my first reason. The dog in Here Boy is clearly described. Now I support it with text evidence from Here Boy by quoting specific examples of descriptive language. So notice, I didn't just say that, but I show where in the text. So listen to my first paragraph right here. First, the dog in Here Boy is clearly described. So that's my reason. And now I give that text evidence. The narrator says that the dog is big and ugly. So my text evidence is highlighted in yellow. She also says his tongue was hanging out and he was wagging his tail. Notice again, since I'm copying it straight from the text, I use those quotation marks. So when you're giving that text evidence, you need to use those quotation marks if you copy it straight. It's okay to copy, just give those quotation marks. And make sure you say where you got it from. We got it from Here Boy. These descriptions help the reader see the dog clearly. On the other hand, Waiting for Stormy does not describe Misty's appearance. In order to picture Misty, the reader must already know what a horse looks like. So, I also do what? I also let the reader know, hey, the other author didn't do this. So you guys might want to use this phrase in your reasoning of, on the other hand, third person point of view doesn't do this, and let me know how you know that. You may not want to use that. You may want to just focus on why yours is better, but a good opinion essay also says why the other side isn't as good. Now, looking back at that, we also need to do what? We also need to have a conclusion. So after you have your two sentences with reasons, remember your reasons need to come straight from the text. And remember, they don't always have to be copied straight from it like we see here, running around the store, calmer and quiet. But if they do, we put them in quotes. But our last part of our story, our essay, not story, is our conclusion. Now listen to our conclusion here. For these two reasons, it's much easier to picture the dog in Here Boy than the horse Misty in Waiting for Stormy. And because the dog is described so well, readers can feel like they are right there in the story watching him. However, readers might not feel that way when reading Waiting for Stormy. Remember, with your conclusion, notice how many sentences we have here. We have 1, 2, 3. So, 3 sentences just like our introduction. So, what's that first one? I'm actually going to change the color for us so we don't get confused with the other portion. And let's do this reddish one. For these two reasons, it's much easier to picture the dog than the horse Misty. So what do we notice about that? Well, our conclusion, the first sentence is what? We restate our opinion. So your conclusion, that very first sentence, you should do what? You should restate your opinion. And then what do we notice the next part? Well, the next part we say, what's the color we haven't used yet? The next part, we're giving that reason again. We're saying he's described so well. So we're restating the reason. We're not saying the exact same sentence again. We're putting it in slightly different language. But we're still letting them know, hey, if you missed it, if you were dozing off, guess what? This is why my essay showed the correct opinion. And lastly, what do we notice? They just do what's called a contrast. They say, hey, the other opinion doesn't do this. Or we remind the reader that the other opinion wasn't as good as ours, the other side. Remind reader other opinion, other argument, whatever you want, other side wasn't as good. So you might say, however, the third person point of view doesn't show this as well, or something like that. So let me highlight this. So you guys are going to be writing your rest of the essay today, so we can look at it the rest of this week. So you're going to remember, write those 2 paragraphs about your reasons, and then incorporate that conclusion. Let us know what your opinion was again, your reasons why they were, and remind them that, hey, the other side wasn't as good as yours. Sounds a little conceited, I know, but that's what we do when we write opinion essays. All right, guys, that is it.